जैसा कि हमने पिछले वीडियो में देखा था, यानी प्रीवियस वीडियो में देखा था कि सेल डेथ वो हमारी दो तरीके से होती है। एक होती है हमारी एपोप्टोसिस और एक होती है नेक्रोसिस। तो बेसिकली एपोप्टोसिस और नेक्रोसिस क्यों होती है, उसके रीजंस क्या है? बेसिकली जो डीएनए है वो सेल का, वो इतना डैमेज हो चुका है कि वो वापस रिपेयर नहीं कर सकते। या तो फिर उसका दूसरा ये रीजन होता है कि हमने जो उस सेल का फंक्शन हमारी बॉडी में कंप्लीटली फिनिश हो चुका है, तब वो सेल की डेथ होती है। यानी सेल बेसिकली सुसाइड करता है। क्यों सुसाइड करता है? दो रीजंस के, क्योंकि उसका डीएनए पहले से ही कुछ ज्यादा ही डैमेज हो गया कि वो रिपेयर नहीं हो सकता, या तो फिर वो या तो फिर उसका हमारी बॉडी में जो फंक्शन था वो हमने कंप्लीट कर चुका है। हमने एपोप्टोसिस लास्ट वीडियो में देखा था, आज हम देखेंगे नेक्रोसिस। नेक्रोसिस बेसिकली क्या होता है कि जो हमारे एपोप्टोसिस में क्या होते थे कैस्पेस एंजाइम्स, यहाँ पे क्या हुआ है हमारे हाइड्रोलिटिक एंजाइम्स, वहां पे सिग्नल्स आके कैस्पेस एंजाइम्स को एक्टिवेट करके एपोप्टोटिक बॉडीज में कन्वर्ट होते थे और उसको फेगोसाइट सेल्स आके एंगल्फ करते थे। यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है, हाइड्रोलिटिक एंजाइम्स आ रहे हैं। वहां एपोप्टोसिस में क्या नहीं हो रहा था, हमारा लीकेज नहीं हो रहा था और इन्फ्लेमेशन नहीं हो रहा था। यहाँ पे नेक्रोसिस में क्या हो रहा है, हमारा लीकेज भी हो रहा है, इन्फ्लेमेशन भी हो रहा है। और मेन कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हम देखने जाए तो नेक्रोसिस की क्या है, इन्फ्लामेशन, ठीक है। और हाँ, इन्फ्लामेशन के टाइप्स डिफरेंट हो सकते हैं, बट इन्फ्लामेशन होता है नेक्रोसिस में, ठीक है। हमारे पास यूजुअली 5 टाइप के नेक्रोसिस है। एक कॉलिगेटिव नेक्रोसिस, लिक्विफेक्टिव नेक्रोसिस, केशियस नेक्रोसिस, फिब्रिनॉइड नेक्रोसिस, फैट नेक्रोसिस। ये हमारे नेक्रोसिस के टाइप्स है। अभी हम देखेंगे एक एक करके। उसमें से हमारा जो कॉलिगेटिव नेक्रोसिस है वो हमारा क्या है, मोस्ट कॉमन टाइप ऑफ नेक्रोसिस। वो क्या है, हमारा मोस्ट कॉमन टाइप ऑफ नेक्रोसिस, ठीक है। अभी हम देखते हैं। Necrosis is the another type of cell death and tissue in the living animals. In apoptosis, the caspase enzymes activated and converted the cells into apoptotic bodies. Here, hydrolytic enzymes activated and lead to the degradation of cell leakage and inflammation take place here. The differences between the apoptosis and necrosis. In apoptosis, what? The single cell involved, right? In necrosis, group of cell is involved. In apoptosis, what happened? The cell shrinkage is going to be happen. Here, cell swelling is happen. In apoptosis, the caspase enzyme is there. In necrosis, the hydrolytic enzyme. Leakage doesn't take place. Leakage take place. Inflammation doesn't take place in apoptosis. In necrosis, the inflammation take place. And in apoptosis, the pycnosis and karyoraxis happens. Even here, the pycnosis and karyoraxis happens. Even the karyolysis is also been going to be happened here in necrosis. There are the 5 type of necrosis: colligative necrosis, colligative or liquefactive necrosis, caseous necrosis, fat necrosis, and fibrinoid necrosis. Among all these 5 type of necrosis, the colligative necrosis is the most common type of the necrosis. Okay. Inflammation is the key feature of necrosis. Okay. Yes, there are many different types of necrosis. Different type of inflammation, sorry, is present, but inflammation is always there in necrosis. Okay, some basic terminology related to the cell. This is the cell, means this is the architecture. We called it the cell membrane or the cell wall. What we call the outline of cell in a neck, we are calling here its architecture details. Okay, this is the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm details. Some cells have the blue, means in every cells there are some different types of cytoplasm therein. Some are few pink granules and granulocytes and all those things are there. And this is the nucleus. By getting the outer layer of, in humans there are many types of cells like monocytes, eosinophils, basophils, monocytes, and many more types of cells. By seeing the 3 structures, cell outline means architecture detail, cytoplasmic detail, and nuclear detail, we can identify easily which type of cell is there. By identifying the nuclear detail, cytoplasmic detail, and cell outline, we get to know which type of cells are there. Because in humans, there are many different types of cells. Basophils, lymphocytes, eosinophils, red blood cells, neutrophils, many more cells. But how can we get to know this is the neutrophil or basophil or eosinophil? By the cell architecture, means cell outline, cytoplasmic detail, and nuclear details. Okay. Now we come to the coagulative necrosis. Basically, in coagulative necrosis is what happens. The cytoplasm and nuclear details both were lost. Only the architecture of the cell is there. Basically, see here the cell is there. Here the this is the cytoplasm and this is the nucleus. But in coagulative necrosis cell, what happened? Only the cell outline is there. No cytoplasmic detail, no nuclear detail is there. Okay. So, when we see the grossly, it's look like the pale yellow and swollen. Means from normal size, it becomes little bit bigger, swollen, and it's the pale in color. We see the pictures. Let me show you. See, this is the normal cell here. Here the see the cytoplasmic and nuclear details and all these things. Here see the nuclear details, cytoplasmic, it's lost or it's condensed more. Means basically from HUL, it's gone totally lost. Grossly, it's look like the pale and swollen. This is the liver. You can see here, it's a pale and swollen. For this is the liver, it's swollen. You can see from the boundaries and this. Okay. More microscope. This is the spleen. You can see like this. The microscopically we see, since this is the normal, here you are able to see that the cytoplasmic and nuclear details. And see here, this is the nephrotic, means this is the normal kidney of cells, and this is the necrosis kidney of cells. See here, only the architecture of the cell is maintained. Here the only the architecture of the cell is maintained. No nuclear detail, nothing cytoplasmic detail is there. Okay, this cell means no, only the architecture details, means from inside it's hollow like, so it gives like the appearance of ghost or tombstone cells. And usually it caused by the ischemia. What is the ischemia? That the artery supplying the blood to the organs, but due to the some obstruction in arteries, the some cells are not able to receive the proper amount of the blood, so that the cell under this it can die. Means it can die the cells, and it goes and means the death of the cell happens in that particular organ, in that particular region of the organ. Okay. uh Except brain, the necrosis happens, colligative necrosis due to the ischemia. Remember, except brain. Okay, let me read it once for you guys. Among the 5 types of necrosis, the colligative necrosis is the most common type. In the necrosis, the architecture detail is present, while the cytoplasmic or cellular details and the nuclear details both were lost. See here, inside the cell, cytoplasmic and nuclear details both were lost because of the death. The definition, the architecture outline persist, but the cellular and cellular details are lost. Or ghost cell, it look like a ghost cell or tombstone appearance. Remember this, ghost cell or tombstone appearances. Causes is ischemia. Main causes ischemia to of all organs except brain. Remember this. Any organs are received the blood via artery. Due to the obstruction of the artery, the sufficient blood doesn't reach to the organ, or organ will undergo ischemia because of the less blood received to the organ, and it will die and lead to the coagulative necrosis. In brain cell die by the liquefactive necrosis. We will see the liquefactive necrosis. And also the mild burns and Zenker's degradation necrosis causes mild burns and Zenker degradation of necrosis. Mild burns and Zenker degradation of necrosis is also happened, but the main cause is ischemia, and grossly it looks like pale and swollen. This is the microscopically view of the normal kidney and nephrotic kidney, means necrotic kidney cells. Okay, at a junction, the at this junction, see the lymphocyte cells are present. See, this is it's not a very clear pictures. These are the lymphocyte cells are present, and the inflammation here happens because of the lymphocyte cells. Okay, at a junction, the lymphocyte cells or lymphocystic inflammation, what we called it lymphocystic inflammation. Okay, or lymphocytes information. The cell is looking like a tombstone and can be recognized by their cytoplasmic and nuclear details. Lost cell were swollen and have more eosinophilic or pink in color. The cell shows the nuclear changes, pycnosis, karyoraxis or karyolysis, and eventually the necrosed focus is infiltrated by the inflammatory cell or at a junction of two lymphocytes present at a feature of necrosis. Coagulative necrosis. Okay, and coagulative necrosis or liquefactive necrosis. Here, the no architecture detail, no cytoplasmic detail, no uh, no architecture detail, nuclear detail, and cytoplasmic detail. All three details were lost here. All three details were lost here, and here it's it happened. Its main cause we saw, that is the brain, and happens because of the second bacterial inflammation, bacterial infections, and second it will happens by the bacterial infections, except two bacteria, the tuberculosis bacteria, mycobacterium tuberculosis and syphilis. Except these two bacteria, all the bacterial infections leads to the cell death by the liquefactive necrosis. In this necrosis, the semi-fluid like appearance is there. The semi-fluid like appearance is there. Okay, there is there is architecture details as well as the cytoplasmic and the nuclear details. All three details were lost. A group of cell is converted into the semi-fluid material. A group of cell is converted into what? The semi-fluid material. Here the main cause is ischemia of brain. Here the main cause is ischemia of brain, and the second is bacterial infection except two, mycobacterium and syphilis. Okay, the bacterial infection, how it will cause the cell death, let's see. If the bacteria entering uh, if the bacteria is entering in any of organ of cell and it kills the cell. Supposing this is the bacteria and this is the cell, it entering into the cell and kills the cell. Okay, by that we saw it in the previous video of the bacteria macrophage, how it's intact, that's gene and all this process. You can check it out, otherwise I will give the link below. Okay, the grossly it looks like the cyst is present. Grossly there is a cyst. Wait, I will show you a picture. See, this is the gross like appearance. This is the cyst. It is a brain picture, and in cyst the main function is like the liquid is present, is the main characteristics. Okay, the organ will contain the cyst, and the cyst contain liquefied center, and the cyst contains, see the here the liquid is there. Okay, this is the normal alive cell, and here see nothing is there. Okay, nothing is there. This is the normal alive cell, and this is the liquefactive necrosis. And okay, microscopically we see this. See here you can see the neurons, ganglions, oligodendrocytes. Here you can see there is a dot like appearance. Nothing is there. Nothing means nothing is there. Here the inflammation, what we called the inflammation here, we inflammation we called it granulation infection or granulation inflammation because of the blood presence of the blood vessel. Here you can see this is the blood vessels and the other types of cells, macrophage and all these types of cells are present in this pic. I don't have the clear pictures of, but hopefully you can just, we have to compare this and this, so that's why I'm putting, so I'm not putting too much of efforts here, just we have to remember the which type of inflammations, which cells are there, and why we call the granulation infection, why we called granulomatous infections. Okay, so granulomatous infection is just next to this, I will explain you all those things. Microscopically at a junction of lymphocytes, macrophage, plasma cells, and blood capillaries are present. At junction, lymphocytes, macrophage, plasma cells, blood capillaries is present. Here, the inflammation, we called it granulation infection because, or inflammation because of the presence of the blood vessel. Why we called a granulation infection? Because of the presence of the blood vessel, where it happens in liquefactive necrosis. Okay, where at junction, which type of cells are there? Plasma cells, lymphocytes, macrophage, blood capillaries, and all those cells are present. Okay, what is the grossly appearance? There is a cyst. In that cyst, there is a cyst like liquid is present. In cyst, there is a liquid is present. Okay, that's it. Nothing more is there. Caseous necrosis. Here is also no architecture detail, no nuclear detail, no cytoplasmic detail. All three details are even lost here. But what is the difference between the liquefactive necrosis and caseous necrosis? In liquefactive necrosis, there is a semi-fluid like appearance, and here it's like a cottage cheese, a solid appearance is there, solid. See, see here, there is a semi type of liquid is there, and see here, there is a strong detail is there, right? Means here the granular debris or the mass resembling to the cottage cheese, could resemble to the cottage cheese. Here the also the no architecture detail as well as cytoplasmic and nuclear details are lost. The cell will converted into the granular debris or mass, granular mass resembling to the cottage cheese. And I tell you that except two bacteria, mycobacterium tuberculosis and uh, syphilis. These two bacteria are involved in caseous necrosis. Whenever the patient have the tuberculosis, or so what we have to first think, the cell would dead by the caseous necrosis. Okay, and the two fungus are there, histoplasm and the coccidiomyosis. Histoplasm and coccidiomyosis. Okay, uh here the inflammation, what we called it, granulomatous infection we called it. Why we called it the granulomatous infection? Because at a junction there is a giant cells are present there. Because of the giant cell is present there, that's why we called it granulomatous infection. And the appearance is like cheese like appearance. When we saw the grossly, it looked like the uh, cheese like appearance. See, this is the lung, and you can see that when we make the paneer bhurji, something like we crush it totally, the paneer and cheese, so in lungs you can easily identify that this is the basically a caseous necrosis. See, this is the lymphoids. Normally it's orange, and here you can see nothing is there. See, nothing. It's like a cheese, like a means whole cheese. How we saw from above the amul when we saw it's look like this, right? It's okay, so remember this, the Mycobacterium encephalus, fungi, histoplasm, and coccidiomyosis. The infection, we called it granulomatic infection, cheese-like appearance. Okay. The granulomatous infection is because the granulomatous contains the granuloma contains the giant cells, ep, uh, epithelial cells, and lymphocytes were present. Okay, at junction, what is present? Epithelial cells, lymphocytes were present, and the giant cells are there. Okay, there is the fat and fibrinoid necrosis are the two different type of necrosis. It's not similar what we discuss right now. The fat necrosis is basically the death of the our adipose tissue, means where in our body we at three places we have the highest number of the fat. First is the breast of female. Second is pancreas, and third is the mesentery of intestine. Okay. Uh, Basically in pancreatitis or omentorum or mesentery infection or traumatic, this leads to the causes. What are the causes? Pancreatitis, traumatic or mesenteric inflammation. It leads to the death of the fat. It's led to the fat necrosis. It's grossly look like the pale yellow. Let me show you. See, this is the pale yellow color. See, here it's also the pale yellow. The means the pale yellow means it's the death of that tissue. And see here, this is the pancreas. See, you are able to identify here the pale yellow. See the pale yellow here. Here, see the no swelling is happening. Okay, here it's the pale yellow. Okay, and in pale is there. Pale is there in coagulative necrosis, but here in fat but swelling is also there. Here the yellow white is there. It's a cross like appearance. Here what? It's a cross like appear. And when we ask about microscopically, see there is a cloud like appearance. It's here. It is a cloud like appearance. Basically in fat necrosis, microscopically when we see, it's like a cloud like appearance. Here it's no normal tissue is there. Here the inflammation happens, mixed inflammation is there. Here the inflammation is mixed inflammation. Okay, and let me read for you guys. Fat necrosis happens only on those organs which have the excessive fats on it. Okay, there are the three organs in human body which have the excessive fat: breast of female, pancreas, and mesentery of intestine. The death of adipose tissue is known as fat necrosis. Causes pancreatitis, traumatic omentorum or mesentery infection. Grossly, it looks like the yellow white deposit. Microscopically, necrotic cell would seem like the cloudy appearance, and here the inflammation is mixed. Here what the inflammation is, mixed inflammation is there. The fibrinoid necrosis happens in our blood vessels. You know that our blood vessels is made up of the three layers: tunica intima, tunica media, and tunica externa. Tunica intima, innermost layer; tunica media and tunica externa, outermost layer. In human there is a blood is there, and this fibrinoid necrosis happens at tunica media. Whenever there is a cell blood vessel injury or something is there. So this is the basically what is there. This is the fibrin like a ribbon like a structure. Okay. So basically you have to just remember for the fibrinoid necrosis, it happens at tunica media. How causes is the blood vessels injury, the blood vessel injury. And in human the blood is present and it's made and it's lined by the endothelial cell. Not much more is there for fibrinoid necrosis. Okay, let me read you for guys. Is take place in blood vessels. The blood vessels have three layers: tunica intima, tunica media, tunica externa, and the lumen contains the blood. Intima was lined by the endothelial cells, the media. In tunica media, the fibrinoid necrosis will happen. We called it fibrinoid necrosis because there is a deposition of like a fibrin material causes the immunological or injury of vessels, vasculitis or autoimmune diseases and etc. Okay, just revise all the five necrosis and then we go for the questions. Okay, let's start from the colligative necrosis. Colligative necrosis, wait. Colligative necrosis. Colligative necrosis is the most common necrosis among the five. Okay, what gives appearance like the tombstone appearance or like ghost architecture details are there. Cytoplasmic and nuclear details were lost. Okay, the grossly it's look like pale and swollen. Microscopically, only the architecture details you are able to see. Okay, have happens because of the ischemia is the main cause. Okay, causes ischemia of all organs except brain. Okay, liquefactive necrosis. The liquefactive necrosis, all three details were lost. Architectural, cellular, and nuclear, all three details were lost. And it will converted into the semi-fluid like appearance. It converted into what? Semi-fluid like appearance. Okay. Third thing, gross. When we look about what we can say, causes is ischemia of brain. Is the causes ischemia of brain and what? Ischemia of brain and bacterial infection. Okay. Third thing is caseous necrosis. Here also the all three details were lost, but here one thing is there. What? It gives that granuloma. Granuloma means the fat like appearance is there, means here the semi fluid material and here the fat, means it's solid. Caseous necrosis. Okay, here the infection will be what we call granulomatous infection for what? Giant cell. And here in liquefactive necrosis we called it the infection is what we call the infection here, it's granulation infection because of the blood vessels present. In colligative necrosis we called it lymphatic infection or why we call it lymphatic infection? Because of the lymphocytes, means is a normal infection. Okay. Then it here the in liquefactive necrosis there is a cyst wall, and in cyst wall there is a liquid is present. And in caseous necrosis there is a cheese like appearance grossly, and happens because of the two bacteria, mycobacterium encephalis, and two fungus, coccidioidomycosis and histoplasm. Okay, fat necrosis happens basically the death of the adipose tissue, happens basically the death of adipose tissue. Okay, and it gives the appearance like white yellow pale. Okay, white yellow pale. Pancreatitis, tumoritic or omentum or mesenteric infection. Okay, fibrinoid it happens in the tunica media. Causes is the blood vessels injury or immunological injury. Pale and swollen. Here where it is colligative or liquefactive necrosis, cyst, and we have fibrinoid caseous necrosis. Grossly, it contains the granulomatic infections, cheese-like appearance, and fat necrosis. Grossly, it's yellow-white deposits. Okay, and in fibrinoid necrosis, it happens in what? The fibrin like deposits. It's there in tunica media, and it gives this. Okay, let's solve the questions. Necrosis within with the cell bodies retain a ghost cell. What the retains a ghost cell or tombstone appearance? Of course, the colligative necrosis. All following organs like undergo the colligative necrosis except what? Brain. Liquefactive necrosis is seen in brain. It's just a reverse question, just changing the words. What is the common change in cell death associated with apoptosis and necrosis? What are the common feature of the apoptosis and necrosis? Karyorrhexis and pycnosis is the two common feature of apoptosis, and there in necrosis the karyolysis is also happened, but karyorrhexis and pycnosis are the two common features. So basically what it's the chromatin condensation. Okay, apoptosis is different from necrosis by the appearance of following: absence of inflammation. Apoptosis is different from necrosis by appearance of absence of inflammation.